Alright guys, TacticalRab again today. Hope you're doing well and enjoying your day so far. And amid speculation as to when we might potentially get some announcements coming out of OpTic, Texas, ZooMaa effectively leaks that it's a done deal. Kenny to OpTic is locked in, it's a for sure guarantee. You can tell the exact moment where he realizes, hang on a second, I just leaked this, making it highly likely indeed that this will be the case. Very much interested to your thoughts in the comments below. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you're new as always. Firstly, another big update on the Activision Blizzard Microsoft drama. So the FTC, after basically they said, oh, you can't do it because of antitrust laws, and then Activision said, no, we're going to pay all these lawyers and we're going to shut that down, and they did. And then the FTC said, actually, we're going to file an appeal to try and fight the judge's decision, and it's an absolute mess. They'll probably get it done eventually. It'll probably get done in the CMA, which is the UK's Competition and Markets Authority, eventually as well, but it's going to take some time. But it does feel a little bit like Activision are preparing for this to go through. It might take some more time, but it's probably going to happen at this point, especially when this was revealed yesterday. This got 20k likes actually, because people are hoping for something of a a renaissance for what Call of Duty used to be under the leadership of Microsoft, because Activision has been fixing matchmaking on way older COD games. This of course being COD 4, right? Originally on Ambush, and then also it was spotted on Modern Warfare 2 as well. This is Xbox 360, old school COD games. The matchmaking is getting fixed and it's starting to work again. That feels like, because Xbox, Microsoft and all this, they're getting ready to actually make the game work again. And I know there's some optimism that Microsoft might make something happen where all the old games are playable at the same time in like an online format. This is Black Ops 1, one of my favorite games ever. Grid, oh, what a map, honestly. Grid TDM, wow, brings me back, to be honest. But anyway, people have noticed that this is going on, and it's quite exciting, actually. Now, okay, what does it mean for the CDL? What does it mean for the future of competitive COD? I don't know, but I'm sure many of us would like a return to be able to play some of these games that aren't really playable, unfortunately, nowadays, and it seems like they've been making fixes to allow this to happen, which is aligned at an interesting timing with the Microsoft takeover. Speaking of some of the modern COD games, thought this is hilarious. Not only was the TAC 56 nerfed yesterday, but so I believe was the Vaznev. I think they reduced the close range damage. Not like anybody cares, right? Because the season is now over, and Parasite was talking that this really doesn't matter that much anyway. I guess for those that are still playing ranked on this game, fair enough if you are, and they're making some changes after the season is done. I do wonder, like, if this year's game was going to have been a 2-year title, which it's not, we're pretty sure we're getting Modern Warfare 3 releasing sometime later this year. I wonder what they'd have done with the meta, because if you are going to do 2 years of the same game, you've got to drastically overhaul the map set and drastically overhaul the weapon meta at some point between those 2 years, which maybe is what they're trying to achieve here, but we always tend to get 2 weapon metas nowadays. Let's talk the OpTic Texas situation then, because Shotzzy, Dashy, they're going to be there. Both of them have effectively confirmed it at this point. But last night, Methods, ZooMaa and Crowder went through and did effectively a, well, Pickems for what they think the rosters should or could be. And a lot of the top teams we know, we're pretty confident in the top 4. After that, things get very sketchy. And we'll look at this in more detail here in a second, because there are some funny teams they formed. But as they're doing this, ZooMaa has some talking points on, alright, what about Kenny or other players that have had difficult seasons, but yet people still know they're very solid players and have very good reputations and stock by professional players, and therefore they're getting signed. And he says, look, Kenny had a bad season, but he's still joining OpTic, and he says this emphatically before then, as he says his next follow-up statement, realizing, and you can kind of tell when he slows down and starts to think that, oh yeah, maybe I shouldn't have quite said that one, because that might have leaked to this is indeed happening.
Because they had a bad year. And it's like, okay, guess what? Kenny didn't have the best year, but now he's on OpTic Texas.
Switch,
you know,
Glenn, and Asum?
Like, bro, there's like, with COD, it's such a team game, and there's so many different factors to competing on, you know, different things. Like, it's...
How about that? Or... Oh, brother, I was about to put Havoc back for Gwen.
Ken, who do you think, like, if you're OpTic right now and your team is Pred, Shotzzy, and Dashy, like, who are you picking up as your 4th?
I don't know. I honestly don't know. I don't have a comment on that one. I don't have anything to say about that.
I feel like it's messed up. If there's any time to get dropped, in my experience, it's after a win, and then it's especially like, yeah, it's But at the end of the day, he just won champs. He just made up like the most money he's ever made competing. It's definitely fucked up. Don't get me wrong. Like on so many different scales, it's fucked up. I think they definitely made a mistake, but you guys got to understand that these teams are not really ran by, like, if let's just hypothetical here. Say an org owner wants someone gone from their team. Let's just, the only org owner I literally have to use OpTic as this reference, because there's not many org owners that you guys actually know. But say Hector wanted Shotzzy gone. Literally the only way to prevent that from happening would be for the rest of the team to say, if he's gone, I'm gone. If he's gone, I'm not playing. So at the end of the day, like, I guess the only fucked up thing was, you know, the other three didn't really stop that from happening. I don't know. They won though. So they're doing something right. It's weird though, right? Because I'm saying that, but that happened to me last year where they did stick up for me. Same guys, pretty much. Besides Caesar swapped with Paul. Like these two, like his and Pacos, like, you know, stuck their neck out for me. But then they didn't do it for Priestahh after winning. So it's kind of weird. I don't know. I don't really know what to say about it.
So for any of you guys who watched the Scrap Time episode that they did with Kenny a little while ago now, I think it was kind of hidden in plain sight, where Kenny was asked the question, who's OpTic's best fourth? I mean, I bet JoeDeceives goes straight federal on this one, and Kenny's like, oh, I don't really want to comment on that at the moment, because I imagine at this time he'd probably already got some contact from OpTic around about this moment, to be honest, after Drazah was going to FaZe, and therefore they were looking at other possibilities, as is our understanding of the situation from what we know publicly. Also, I did share that one from Crimsix kind of discussing Priestahh getting dropped, because we talked about it yesterday, some of the Octane's perspective on why that would have happened. Crimsix's thoughts are quite interesting, because he says, yeah, it's definitely screwed up that they did this to Priestahh, but at the same time, if you are going to get dropped, now is like the best time to get dropped, you know? You're better off getting dropped now, as frustrating as it is, than getting dropped or just like not brought back, or maybe he made the decision himself to leave because he wasn't getting paid what he wanted to get paid, right? So in part it's kind of on both elements, where if they literally offered him a minimum, he'd probably be like, well, you know, I'm not going to play for you guys for a minimum when Hydra's on whatever money and I can make whatever money elsewhere. So maybe it was a little bit of both there, but Priestahh will command, as reigning world champion, a pretty good salary elsewhere. So that's the thing for Clayster, for example, in the past, when he was dropped by, let's say, the Dallas Empire going forwards. Okay, he joined the New York Subliners in the end, which at the time wasn't a good squad, as, you know, they didn't win as much back then as they were doing this previous season, but you always tend to get good opportunities when you get dropped after winning, because your stock is in a very decent position. So let's talk about this tier maker then, that these guys come out with. So starting at the top, okay, we know FaZe with Drazah, so I'll put that off the screen for now. OpTic Texas, we know. Subliners, Toronto. Then we get down to the Los Angeles Thieves. They've gone for Accuracy, aBeZy, Nero, Standy. I know that many Thieves fans are like, what did we do to deserve Accuracy if this happens? And I no disrespect to Accuracy, because I think he still could be a solid piece, but is that where Thieves want to start building a roster? I don't mind it, to be honest, just because if you, like, Seattle did pretty well with Accuracy and some very talented players around them. To me, that's the way to try and get some upside here. I would, if I'm trying to build a team that can actually compete with the top dogs, I'm trying to get a veteran guy, probably a veteran AR. My preference might well be Clay, to be honest, but, you know, there's some other options out there, and this is excluding the Slasher Priestahh duo if I'm starting from scratch, because we think that Slasher and Priestahh are a duo, and Boston are definitely a possibility there, but I'm looking at maybe an Accuracy, maybe a Clay, maybe an Attach, and I'm trying to put around them three guys with very high ceilings. aBeZy would be a really interesting one, and I think that he will get a spot somewhere. He certainly should. Afro would be another one, maybe a Capsidol. I do like Nero as well, so I think the way that Thieves have done this isn't terrible. I'm just not convinced, to be honest, that this is a great idea. I do also wonder, like, because with Huke, we thought that it was going to be iLLeY, Huke, Awakening, and Standy as a quartet, but that's not what they've gone for at all, so maybe that's either fallen through or something else is happening. I believe that Boston were definitely interested in Ghosty, but whether that is still the case if Slasher and Priestahh as a duo want to come along is a little bit unclear. This is a quite interesting team, but Huke and TJ Halley on your SMGs, you're going to get cooked a bit. But it just shows that from an SMG talent perspective, there's not that much out there right now. I mean, Thieves have arguably done the best of the bunch here, apart from Boston, and they've put Snoopy and Capsidil together, which is interesting. I don't mind it. I think I'd prefer an SMG there with a little bit more experience to partner up with Snoopy. Ideally, you'd get like Envoy here, right? But unfortunately, that's not possible because he's going to Toronto, to our understanding. So that's what they've done for Boston, which is a pretty good team. I mean, Surge, they've gone for Clay, Wake. I kind of like this, actually. I feel like Clay could get a lot out of Awakening. I think that'd be an interesting combination because, you know, Awakening, like, Clay's a very aggressive AR. I think that could kind of work. Whether they want to do it, that's a question. Mack and then Afro, I kind of like that duo, but also part of me thinks that Mack was so good back in Modern Warfare 2019 on the flex. I used to remember him like running around with the MP5, picking up the M4. He was really good in that kind of flex role. Yes, it was 5v5, but I think that he's better suited to that role. The issue is that there isn't many SMGs around, so Mack might be forced to playing the sub again, even though I don't think it's where he's at his best personally. Poor Donny Temp here, according to them, is still going to be stuck on the Las Vegas Legion next year. Maybe that's expected, but they've gone for Temp, Cammy, Vivid, and Havoc, which is pretty interesting. Just shows, man, like, you can't do much with your SMG duos. You can get one good SMG, and then your other SMG is going to be a bit of a, you know, shot in the dark type thing. Even Guerrillas, I mean, Arcitys, Beans, JoeDeceives, Aseem. It's not pretty, but I guess it will get the job done. Like, I'm not convinced by many of these rosters, as I'm sure you can tell. And even the one they form at the bottom here, which is like one of the most tragic rosters I've ever seen. And if this happens, like, just dear God. iLLeY, Nasty, Bance, Hicksy on London. Like, I don't know what Nasty has done to deserve this. And no disrespect to these players individually, but I feel like if you put these together, like, I mean, Bance and Hicksy is an SMG duo. They come with the same player, you know what I mean? You can have one or the other on your team and be successful. If you have both, you're getting cooked, I think, as far as I'm concerned. This was a version of that team that I thought was more promising here. The Liquid Paper put together, the Charlotte, London. We don't really know where they're going to be, but this is an interesting idea. Like, I think Nasty, he might get an offer from a team better than London, to be honest. I wouldn't be surprised if he did, but probably he's going to stay there. Hicksy joining, I think, makes sense. Champion level player, but you've got to have a slaying SMG alongside him if you want to do that. Wardy would be a very interesting and potentially good option there. So I think that's a nice trio. And then maybe a Boozer, maybe somebody else. Like, if they could form this, I think they'd be trying to give it a go. I know people have said, oh, this team is going to get cooked, but I'm sure many would have said the same thing about the London team they formed going into the start of the Vanguard season with, you know, Gizmo, Nasty, Afro, and Zero, right? And they were a top 3 team early on, so I think there's some upside there if they do the right thing. Now, I did want to mention on Pred. Many people have said to me, oh, Pred's in Dallas, like, you know, here he is. Now, you've got to understand that Sib and Pred and the guys on Surge and many other teams also lived in Dallas last year. Just because he's in Dallas, Texas, doesn't mean that he's, you know, tweeted this or put this in because he's on OpTic, right? Now, my understanding is that he's back in Australia right now for at least another week and a half, for quite some time still. So I don't think that Pred is going to be, he's going to be flying back to the state in a week and a half, I think, and then the announcements will be formed. So even though OpTic Kenny is a thing and OpTic Pred is a thing, we're 99% sure and the contracts are done, the announcement is probably a little while away, so I wouldn't hold your breath here just yet for Pred to be confirmed. I wonder whether they'll do anything at a different time, because they could, because Kenny's there in the States, they could get him in to do some announcement stuff. But if they wait for Pred and they decide to give it some time, it's probably going to be at least a couple of weeks, I think, until we actually get OpTic confirming this. I don't exactly know why they like to take so long on this stuff, but it is the case nonetheless. Also wanted to mention, I saw this going around, and I forgot that this was a stat, and this is like a crazy stat. I know there's the crazy stats out there that Shotzzy is 13-0 all-time against Slasher, which is pretty wild, but then again you think, well, Slasher was on that terrible Thieves team, like there was a bit of a shambles. He was on that Los Angeles Guerrillas team, like a lot of those victories were expected. This one, though, was pretty crazy. That over the last 2 seasons, TJ has beaten Pred every time he's played him. And this is ever since, okay, he's beaten Surge every time he's played them. But, of course, Accuracy and, you know, let's say Mack and other players have played TJ previously to when Pred came onto the scene 2 seasons ago. And he's 6-0. Boston, they won all the series they played against Pred that year. And this year, Vegas won all the series they played against Surge. So, look, I don't know where TJ's going to land as an SMG, but he does seem to have somehow this remarkable record where he always beats Pred. So if you want to beat OpTic, this is the model to follow. Very much intrigued to hear your thoughts in the comment section below. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you're new. Take care, and I'll see you next time.